Clara Thompson jolted awake, her heart racing as she was enveloped by the acrid smell of smoke. The crackling flames outside her window roared like a ferocious beast, devouring everything in their path. Panic surged through her veins as she bolted upright in bed, her mind racing with confusion and fear. She could hear the distant shouts of firefighters and the wailing of sirens, but all she could focus on was the urgent need to escape. "Mom! Dad!" she cried, her voice hoarse as she stumbled into the hallway. The heat radiated from the walls, making her skin prickle uncomfortably. She glanced around, her heart sinking as she realized she was alone. Thoughts of her parents filled her mind. Where were they? Had they escaped? As she reached the front door, Clara's breath caught in her throat. The flames danced hungrily, their orange and yellow tongues licking at the air, illuminating the darkened room. She could feel the heat pressing against her, forcing her back. With a surge of adrenaline, she threw open the door and stumbled into the night, her bare feet hitting the cold pavement. Outside, chaos reigned. Firefighters shouted orders, their voices mingling with the crackling blaze. Clara stood frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief as she watched her life go up in flames. Memories of her childhood, her family dinners, her dreams, all consumed by the inferno. She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling utterly lost in the overwhelming scene. "Miss! You need to move back!" A firefighter barked, rushing past her. His helmet glinted in the flickering light as he focused on the blazing structure. Clara stumbled back, her mind racing as she scanned the crowd. Where were her parents? Had they made it out? The sound of a familiar voice broke through her panic. "Clara, over here!" It was her neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, waving frantically. Clara rushed over, her heart pounding. "I thought I saw your parents leave through the back." Mrs. Henderson's eyes were filled with concern. "Did they make it out?" Clara's voice trembled, the weight of dread heavy in her chest. I think so. They were helping others evacuate," Mrs. Henderson reassured her. But Clara could see the worry etched on the older woman's face. As the fire raged on, Clara felt a sense of hopelessness wash over her. She had lost her home, her sanctuary. The world she knew had been reduced to ashes in a matter of minutes. The sirens blared, and the firefighters worked tirelessly, but the flames seemed relentless. Hours passed before the fire was finally under control. Clara stood among the onlookers, shivering in the cool night air, her heart heavy with grief. She felt like a ghost, wandering through the remnants of her life, desperately searching for something, anything, that could anchor her in this moment of despair. With the flames finally extinguished, Clara was allowed to approach the wreckage. She walked slowly, her heart aching with each step. The smell of charred wood and melted plastic filled her nostrils, and she fought the urge to cry. Everything she had ever owned was gone, reduced to blackened debris. "Clara," a soft voice called. It was her mother, emerging from the shadows, her face streaked with soot and tears. Clara rushed into her embrace, relief washing over her. "I thought I lost you," her mother whispered, holding Clara tightly. "I was so scared," Clara admitted, the tears finally spilling as she clung to her mother. "I know, sweetheart, but we're together and that's what matters," her mother said, her voice trembling. As they stood together, Clara felt a strange pull to sift through the ashes, searching for remnants of her past. It was as if some instinct drove her to unearth whatever she could. With her mother by her side, they began to pick through the debris, but the reality of their loss soon engulfed them. "Clara, look!" her mother suddenly exclaimed, her voice rising with unexpected excitement. Clara turned to see her mother holding a charred envelope, its edges singed but still intact. "What is it?" Clara asked, intrigued. "It has your name on it," her mother replied, handing it to her with trembling hands. Clara's heart raced as she carefully opened the envelope, revealing a letter inside, its paper brittle and scorched. "Dear Clara," it began, the handwriting elegant yet faint. Her heart raced as she read on, discovering that it was a letter from her estranged grandmother, someone she had never known. In that moment, amidst the ruins of her past, Clara felt a flicker of hope. The letter spoke of a secret inheritance waiting for her in a town called Willow Creek. Could this be the chance she needed to rebuild her life? As curiosity ignited within her, Clara realized that perhaps the fire had not only taken everything away, but had also opened a door to a new beginning. Clara Thompson stood on the cobblestone streets of Willow Creek, her heart racing with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. The quaint town, with its historic buildings painted in soft pastels and blooming flower boxes, felt like a scene from a storybook. She inhaled deeply, the scent of fresh pine mingling with the faint aroma of baked goods wafting from the nearby bakery. Yet, beneath the beauty, Clara felt the weight of uncertainty pressing against her chest. This place was supposed to hold secrets about her past, a past she had never known but now desperately wanted to understand. As she wandered through the town square, she noticed a small cafe with an inviting outdoor patio. The laughter of patrons and the clinking of cups added a vibrant rhythm to the serene atmosphere. Clara stepped inside, her fingers brushing over the rustic wooden tables as she approached the counter. The barista, a cheerful woman with silver hair tied back in a bun, greeted her with a warm smile. "Welcome. What can I get for you, dear?" the woman asked, her voice as comforting as a warm blanket. "Just a coffee, please," Clara replied, her eyes scanning the walls adorned with photographs of Willow Creek through the decades. As she sipped her coffee, Clara felt a pull toward the back of the cafe where an elderly woman sat alone at a corner table. The woman's silver hair framed her face and her deep-set eyes seemed to hold a world of stories. Clara felt an inexplicable connection and decided to approach her. "Excuse me," Clara said softly. "I couldn't help but notice you sitting here. I'm new in town. My name is Clara." The woman looked up, her gaze piercing yet kind. "Agnes," she replied, her voice steady. "What brings you to Willow Creek, Clara?" Clara hesitated, unsure of how much to share. I found a letter from my grandmother. I'm trying to learn more about my family." Agnes's expression shifted subtly, a flicker of recognition passing over her features. "Your grandmother, you say? Tell me more." As Clara explained the circumstances surrounding her discovery, Agnes leaned in closer, her interest piqued. "Your grandmother was a remarkable woman, though life treated her harshly. The past can be a tangled web, my dear." "What do you mean?" Clara asked, her curiosity deepening. Agnes sighed, a shadow passing over her face. "There were family secrets, betrayals that cut deep. Many in this town remember, but they might not share everything." Clara felt a chill at Agnes's words. "Do you know anything specific? Anything about the inheritance mentioned in her letter?" Agnes hesitated, her gaze drifting out the window as if searching for something in the distance. "There's a history here, Clara, a history that might be better left undisturbed." "Please, I need to know," Clara pressed, her heart pounding. "I lost everything in the fire. This is all I have left." Agnes regarded her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Very well. Meet me at the library later. There are old records that may shed light on your family's past." Clara felt a rush of hope. "Thank you, Agnes. I'll be there." After their conversation, Clara made her way to the local library, a charming brick building with ivy creeping up its walls. The moment she stepped inside, the musty smell of old books enveloped her. Clara walked through the aisles, her fingers grazing the spines of countless volumes, each one a potential gateway to her family's hidden stories. She approached the desk where a librarian with glasses perched on the tip of her nose looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for anything related to the Thompson family," Clara said, trying to suppress her nervousness. The librarian nodded, motioning toward the historical archives in the back. "You might find something there. There are old newspapers and records from generations ago." As Clara pored over the dusty newspapers, her heart raced with every page she turned. Then, a clipping caught her eye, an article from several decades ago. It read, "Thompson Family Fortune. The Mysterious Disappearance of Agnes Thompson." Her breath caught in her throat as she read about a family fortune that had been lost, shrouded in secrecy. The implication was clear. Her grandmother had a life far more complex than she had ever imagined. The article mentioned a feud that had torn the family apart, hinting at betrayal and greed. Clara's mind swirled with questions. What had happened? Why had her grandmother chosen to leave her a letter? And what was the nature of the inheritance? The more she uncovered, the deeper her intrigue grew, and she felt a sense of urgency to piece together her family's history. Willow Creek held the key, and Clara was determined to unlock its secrets. Clara sat at the small wooden table in the Willow Creek library, surrounded by stacks of dusty books and faded newspaper clippings. The scent of aged paper filled the air, mingling with the faint aroma of old wood. She felt a thrill of determination coursing through her veins as she sifted through the remnants of her family's history. The letter from her grandmother had ignited a fire within her, one that pushed her to uncover the truth behind the family feud that had torn them apart. "Clara?" A soft voice interrupted her concentration. She looked up to see Agnes standing at the entrance, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. Clara had grown fond of the elderly woman, who seemed to have a wealth of knowledge about the town and its inhabitants. "Yes, Agnes, come in," Clara replied, motioning for her to join her. Agnes shuffled over, her cane tapping rhythmically against the wooden floor. "I thought I might find you here," Agnes said, settling into the chair across from Clara. "What have you discovered today?" Clara leaned forward, eager to share. "I found a newspaper clipping from the 70s that mentions my grandmother's name. Apparently there was a scandal involving her and some family members. They were fighting over an inheritance and it got pretty nasty." Agnes frowned, her expression turning serious. "Ah yes, the feud. It was quite the spectacle back in those days. Your grandmother was a strong woman, but the family dynamics were complicated." "Complicated how?" Clara pressed, her heart racing with anticipation. "It was a combination of jealousy, ambition, and misunderstandings," Agnes explained, her fingers tapping nervously against the table. "Your grandmother had dreams of her own, and some in the family believed she was trying to take what wasn't hers." Clara absorbed the information, feeling a mix of sympathy and indignation for the woman she had never known. But why would they fight over something that belonged to her? It doesn't make sense. "Greed can cloud judgment, my dear," Agnes replied, her voice heavy with the weight of history. "Sometimes it's easier to believe the worst in someone rather than support them." Clara nodded, the pieces of her family's puzzle starting to form a clearer picture. "I need to find out more about what really happened. There must be records or old letters that can explain everything." "Be careful, Clara," Agnes cautioned, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Not everyone is pleased with your digging. Some secrets are meant to stay buried." "I appreciate your concern, but I need to know the truth," Clara insisted, determination hardening her resolve. "This is my family. I can't just walk away." Agnes sighed, her gaze softening. "I admire your spirit, child. Just remember that unearthing the past can bring unexpected consequences." Later that evening, Clara returned to her temporary home, a quaint bed and breakfast where she had been staying since arriving in Willow Creek. The small room was filled with the comforting smell of lavender, and she felt a sense of peace wash over her. Just as she was about to settle into bed, her phone buzzed on the nightstand, pulling her back to reality. She glanced at the screen, frowning at the unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Hello? Clara Thompson." A voice crackled on the other end, low and eerie. "Yes, who is this?" she replied, feeling a shiver run down her spine. "You need to stop digging into your grandmother's past," the voice warned. "Some secrets are better left buried." Clara's heart raced and she struggled to keep her voice steady. "Who are you? Why should I listen to you?" "Because it's not just your family's history at stake. You could put yourself in danger. Just let it go," the voice urged before abruptly hanging up. The silence that followed felt suffocating. Clara stared at the phone in disbelief, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within her. Was this a prank? A genuine warning? Her mind raced with possibilities, but one thing was clear. She wasn't going to let fear dictate her next move. She had come this far and there was no turning back now. With newfound resolve, Clara climbed into bed, clutching her grandmother's letter tightly. She would uncover the truth, no matter what it took. The secrets of her family were waiting, and she was determined to face them head-on. Clara stood in the library's dim light, a single overhead bulb flickering as if it too was unsure of its purpose. The scent of old books and dust filled the air, wrapping around her like a comforting blanket. In front of her, stacks of books lay scattered, remnants of her relentless pursuit of truth. She had brushed off the anonymous warning, convinced that the secrets of her family were worth any risk. With Jack by her side, she felt an unshakable resolve to unravel the tangled web of her grandmother's past. "Do you really think we'll find anything?" Jack asked, leaning against the wooden table, his arms crossed. His voice was laced with a mixture of skepticism and intrigue. Clara glanced up from the newspaper clippings she had been poring over. "I have to believe we will. There's a reason my grandmother wanted me to know about this inheritance. It's not just about the money, it's about understanding who I am." Jack nodded, his expression softening. "Okay, then what's our next move?" "We need to find out more about that estate. If it exists, it might hold the answers we're looking for." Clara's heart raced at the thought of the hidden estate, the possibility that it could reveal a part of her family history she never knew existed. After hours of research, they found clues indicating that the estate was located on the outskirts of Willow Creek, a place known for its sprawling gardens and decrepit buildings that whispered stories of the past. Clara felt a surge of excitement mixed with trepidation. What if the estate was a mere shadow of what it once was? Or worse, what if it was nothing but a memory, lost to time, like her grandmother? Let's go find it, Jack said, his enthusiasm contagious. What's the worst that can happen? We get lost in the woods? Or end up with a family curse, Clara teased, half joking. They both laughed, easing the tension that had built up over the long day. As they made their way through the town, Clara felt a sense of purpose guiding her steps. The quaint buildings and friendly smiles of the locals felt like a balm to her soul, but her mind was preoccupied. She was determined to face whatever skeletons her family had hidden away. They reached the estate just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the crumbling facade. Vines clung to the walls, and the garden, once vibrant, now resembled a wild tangle of nature reclaiming its territory. Clara stood at the entrance, her breath caught in her throat. "Are you ready?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "Let's do this." They stepped inside, the wooden door creaking ominously as they entered. The air was thick with dust, and the dim light barely illuminated the grand but decaying interior. Clara's heart raced as she took in the faded portraits that lined the walls, the eyes of her ancestors watching her every move. "Look at this," Jack said, pointing toward a door partially hidden behind a rotting bookshelf. Clara's pulse quickened. What lay beyond it? Together they pushed the shelf aside, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling down into darkness. "I guess we're going down," Clara said, her voice trembling slightly. Jack offered her a reassuring smile, and together they descended the stairs, each creak echoing like a heartbeat in the silence. At the bottom they discovered a hidden room, dimly lit by a single, dusty window. Clara stepped inside, her breath hitching as she took in the sight before her. The room was filled with old letters scattered across a wooden table, their edges yellowed with age. Clara's heart raced as she approached, recognizing the familiar handwriting of her grandmother. "Clara, look at this," Jack said, picking up a letter that seemed to have been untouched for years. "It might be important." As Clara reached for it, she felt a chill run down her spine. The air felt heavier here, as if the room itself was holding its breath, waiting for the truth to be uncovered. "What does it say?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack began to read aloud, his voice reverberating in the stillness. "To whoever finds this, know that our family has been plagued by betrayal and greed. My sister's jealousy led her to ruin not just my life, but the lives of many." Clara's heart sank as the words sank in. The dark secrets of betrayal and greed that plagued her family were now laid bare in front of her. She glanced at Jack, who met her gaze with a mixture of concern and support. "We need to read more," Clara urged, her fingers trembling as she reached for another letter, determined to uncover the truth that had haunted her family for generations. Each letter seemed to peel back layers of deception, revealing the painful history that had led to her grandmother's estrangement. As she read on, the shadows of the past loomed larger, intertwining her fate with the legacy of a family she had barely known. The revelations stirred a storm of emotions within her: anger, sadness, and a newfound sense of purpose. The secrets that had been hidden away were finally coming to light, and Clara was ready to confront whatever came next. Clara stood before Agnes, the weight of the revelation heavy in the air between them. The quaint little room, filled with the scent of aged paper and musty books, felt suddenly charged with unspoken emotions. Clara's heart raced as she tried to process the truth that had just unfurled. "You're my grandmother's sister?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Agnes's gaze hardened, her blue eyes reflecting years of bitterness. "Yes, Clara, I am. And I've watched from the sidelines as your grandmother lived her life, thriving while I was left in the shadows," she admitted, her voice tinged with resentment. "It was never fair." Clara took a step back, stunned. "You sabotaged her? Because of jealousy?" The accusation hung in the air like a dark cloud, and Clara felt a mix of anger and sorrow surge within her. How could family do this to one another? Agnes's expression softened momentarily, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability beneath the hardened exterior. "I never meant for you to suffer, Clara. But the past, it has a way of haunting us, doesn't it?" Clara took a deep breath, realizing that while she needed to confront the past, she also had a choice about how to move forward. "I refuse to be a pawn in this family feud. I want to use my inheritance to rebuild my life, and I want to help this town heal, not divide us further." Agnes's expression faltered, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. "You would do that? After everything?" "Yes," Clara affirmed, her resolve strengthening. "This town has given me hope amidst my loss. I want to create something positive from all this pain. Why would you want to help the very people who turned their backs on us? Agnes challenged, her voice rising defensively. Because I believe in breaking the cycle, Clara replied, her eyes steady. I want to forge a new legacy, one that doesn't revolve around jealousy or betrayal. We can't change the past, but we can choose how to shape the future. Silence enveloped them as Agnes considered Clara's words. Clara felt a strange mix of empathy and determination. You can join me, Agnes. We can work together to mend the rifts in our family and the community. It may not erase the past, but it could be a start. Agnes looked away, her features a battleground of conflicting emotions. You're a brave girl, Clara. I admire that. But change is hard. You may not succeed. Maybe not, Clara admitted, but I won't let fear dictate my choices anymore. With that, Clara turned and walked toward the door, leaving Agnes to ponder her offer. Outside, the sun had begun to set, casting a warm glow over Willow Creek. She felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Later, in Jack's company, Clara shared her encounter with Agnes. I can't believe she's my great aunt and that she tried to sabotage my grandmother, she said, shaking her head in disbelief. Jack listened intently, his brow furrowing. But you handled it well, he said, admiration evident in his tone. You're not letting the past define you. That's powerful. Clara smiled, grateful for his support. I want to organize a town event, a way to share my story and perhaps help others heal too. I think it could bring the community together. Jack's eyes lit up. That's a fantastic idea. We can plan something that highlights the town's history and celebrates its resilience. I'll help you with everything. Thank you, Jack, Clara said, feeling a surge of hope. Together, we can create something meaningful. As they brainstormed ideas, Clara envisioned a future not just for herself, but for the entire town. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but she felt ready to face them head-on, determined to rise above the shadows of her family's past and forge a brighter path forward. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over Willow Creek as Clara stood in front of the town hall, where the community event she had organized was in full swing. Laughter and music filled the air, and for the first time since the fire, Clara felt a sense of belonging. She stood beside Jack, who was animatedly chatting with a group of townsfolk, their faces lit with joy and camaraderie. Clara looked around, absorbing the atmosphere of kindness and connection that enveloped her. It was a stark contrast to the emptiness she had felt in the aftermath of her loss. Can you believe how many people showed up? Clara said, her voice tinged with excitement as she gazed at the crowd. Jack smiled, his eyes sparkling with pride. You've brought everyone together. This town needed a reason to celebrate, and you've given them that. Just as Clara was beginning to relax, a chill ran down her spine. She spotted Agnes at the edge of the crowd, her presence looming ominously. Clara's heart sank. Agnes had been quiet since their last confrontation, but now she stood there, arms crossed, watching the event unfold. The older woman's expression was a mix of disdain and bitterness, and Clara could feel the tension in the air thickening. As if sensing the shift, Jack turned to Clara, his brow furrowing. What's wrong? Agnes, Clara whispered, nodding in the direction of her grandmother's sister. I don't know what she's planning, but I can feel it. She won't let this go. Just then, Agnes strode into the center of the gathering, her voice cutting through the laughter like a knife. Isn't this just precious? She called out, her tone dripping with sarcasm. A little party to celebrate a family that's nothing but a farce. Clara, you think you can erase the past with a few cookies and songs? Gasps echoed through the crowd and Clara's heart raced. She stepped forward, gathering her courage. Agnes, this isn't about erasing anything, it's about moving forward and healing. Agnes scoffed, dismissing Clara's words with a wave of her hand. Healing? You have no idea what you're dealing with. You think you can just waltz in here claiming an inheritance that isn't yours? My sister worked hard for what she had and you've done nothing but dig up her old wounds. Clara felt the weight of the crowd's eyes on her, but she refused to back down. I know about the manipulations, Agnes. I have evidence of how you sabotaged my grandmother. You've been hiding behind your bitterness for too long. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder, a mix of shock and curiosity. Clara could see Jack's supportive stance beside her as he nodded encouragingly. She took a deep breath and continued. I understand you felt wronged, but this isn't the way to honor our family's past. You can't keep holding on to this anger forever. Agnes's face paled, the realization dawning on her that Clara was prepared to confront the truth publicly. You think you can just throw accusations around? You don't know the whole story. Maybe not, Clara replied, her voice steady. But I know enough to understand that you've let your resentment dictate your life. You've made choices that hurt others, and now it's time for those choices to have consequences. The crowd began to shift, and Clara could feel the support building around her. People whispered amongst themselves, exchanging glances of solidarity. Clara's heart raced with hope as she saw the tide turning against Agnes. "I'm not going to let your actions define my future," Clara declared, her voice rising above the murmurs. "I've inherited my grandmother's estate and I plan to use it to help this community and honor her memory. It's time for the truth to come out." Agnes's composure cracked, and for a moment, Clara saw vulnerability beneath her hardened exterior. But before she could respond, the crowd erupted in applause, rallying behind Clara's resolve. As the event progressed, Clara felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The community had embraced her, and she knew they would stand by her side as she faced the challenges ahead. Agnes, on the other hand, was left to confront the consequences of her deceit. In the weeks that followed, legal actions were set in motion against Agnes for her manipulations and efforts to undermine Clara's inheritance. As Clara stepped into her new role as the rightful heir, she found purpose in rebuilding not only her life, but also the connections within Willow Creek. With the support of Jack and the community, Clara transformed her tragedy into a new beginning, paving the way for healing, growth, and a legacy that would honor her family's past while embracing the future with open arms. What a powerful and emotional journey we've just experienced with Clara Thompson. From the flames that threatened to consume everything she knew, to the discovery of long-buried family secrets, Clara's story reminds us that even in the darkest moments, there's a path to redemption and new beginnings. If this story resonated with you, I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below. How did Clara's courage and determination impact you? And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you can join us for more stories that explore the complexities of life, love, and the human spirit. Let's continue this journey together. Your insights and participation make our community stronger. May we all find the strength to face our own challenges with the same bravery Clara did.